This is CBC Here and Now.
There are days when they are spread very thin. They work 12-hour shifts. It's demanding and exhausting work.
Tonight, more COVID patients are hospitalized.
As some ICU specialists try to cope with the increasing demand on the system.
See if some of the restrictions can be dropped, so it's like some of the companies could open up again.
I would like to see more of a recovery process done, almost like New Brunswick, like a zoning.
Since COVID cases haven't been appearing in other parts of the province,
There's a call from the business community to lift restrictions in places outside of St. John's.
We're seeing snow changing to rain this evening. Then tomorrow, the snow squall machine kicks up. We're going to see snow squalls for the Avalon and the West Coast.
Good evening and welcome to Here and Now. I'm Carolyn Stokes.
and I'm Peter Cowan. More new cases of COVID-19 today with more COVID patients in hospital. We're seeing more of those patients also being moved into the intensive care unit. Let's start with those numbers. While the number of hospitalizations continues to climb, there are now 10 people in hospital and 5 of those are in the ICU. There were 10 new cases announced today, but the trend on recoveries is continuing as more people are recovering than are catching COVID-19. There were 20 recoveries, leaving 335 cases. So what does that mean for the trend? Well, you can see from the graph here over the last few days, the number of active cases has continued to fall. However, the number of active cases now is still well above the peak from last April. Lots of people are interested in the vaccine rollout and how we compare to the rest of the country. I'll break that down along with more of your COVID questions a little later in the show.
Well, the strain on the healthcare system is now starting to show. The union representing respiratory therapists is raising concerns, and we're learning that nurses have been put on notice that they may be redeployed. Here and Now's Terry Roberts reports.
This is one union leader you don't often see in the media, but today he's speaking out about the challenges faced by respiratory therapists.
They had a lot coming at them before COVID. As this pandemic has continued to unfold, the concern continues to escalate.
Among other things, they operate the ventilators that mechanically pump oxygen into critically ill patients. It's a vital service during a pandemic, and their union is worried about a sharp increase in hospitalizations and perhaps a scenario that might require therapists to self-isolate away from their duties. Their union says that must be avoided at all costs.
There are days when they are spread very thin. They struggle to get their lunch breaks. They struggle to get any kind of rest period. They work 12-hour shifts. It's demanding and exhausting work.
Health Minister John Haggie said recently he's not worried about a shortage of ventilators, but is concerned about a shortage of staff to use them. That touched a nerve with the people who operate the vents, prompting the union to look for a meeting with the Health Minister and Liberal leader Andrew Furey. So far that hasn't happened, and Piercy is worried about his members.
I have no doubt, Terry, that they will do the work, probably to their own detriment, their own health and mental health and well-being. But that's not good enough. We've been a year into this pandemic, and we feel like, some of these conversations probably should have happened before this.
Meanwhile, regional health authorities continue to deal with a staffing shortage. It's especially noticeable in long-term care centres like Pleasant View Towers in St. John's. And notification has gone out to nurses that they may be required to fill gaps elsewhere.
They are looking at skill mix. They're looking at people with the experience to redeploy back to Pleasant View Towers.
The nurses' union is careful not to raise the alarm.
Patients are safe. Residents are safe. It is challenging times for our members, and we're working with the regional health authorities to help ensure that we have adequate staffing levels.
Terry Roberts, CBC News, St. John's.
We received word late this afternoon that Liberal leader Andrew Furey and Health Minister John Haggie have accepted a request to meet with the union representing respiratory therapists. There are no details on when that meeting will occur.
Well, the latest outbreak is predominantly centered in the St. John's region. With so few COVID cases in other parts of the province, people there are wondering why they're still in lockdown. As Here Now's Colleen Connors tells us, small business advocates are pushing for a regional reopening plan.
closed signs all over the city. Shops in downtown Corner Brook are shut, and owners have had enough.
I realize the severity of coronavirus, and you know what, I'm not taking that away. Coronavirus is a very serious virus. But if it's not here in this area, I think we should start relieving some restrictions on our areas in Central and so forth that doesn't have a vast amount of corona, and keeping it isolated to one area.
Noble's hair and nail studio took a big hit during the first lockdown. She doesn't want to lose her business, and she's left asking Fitzgerald why alert level 5 outside of Metro.
I mean, I just bought a whole bunch of supplies 2 weeks ago, so I mean, we're talking $700 of supplies. Now I've got a lot more overhead than what I did last year, and this is only my second year in business, so bills still keep coming out. They shut down our businesses, but Newfoundland Power doesn't shut down. The rent doesn't shut down. See what I'm saying? These still keep coming in, and unfortunately, you know, it's very tough times, very frustrating.
Small business is the backbone of our economy.
The Gander and Area Chamber of Commerce took central business owners' concerns a step further by publicly asking Fitzgerald to lift restrictions.
Our numbers are low. We know that the threat is still there. We know that the virus can move rapidly, but we would like to have the island assessed more granularly, kind of like New Brunswick did, to look at possibly zoning out different areas and be able to get some of the economy going again.
I would caution people against that line of thinking, because we have no idea what would have happened had these measures not been put in place.
Hancock says the Chamber's suggestions are just a concept. He hopes with some risk assessment, some businesses will be able to open their doors next week, and says travel within the province has to happen.
You know, truck drivers be able to move around, couriers, delivery services, and those type businesses need to be able to keep going, get into businesses and keep things going. So that's a very important aspect for us, is that if the supply chain breaks, the economy breaks for us.
As for the Corner Brook Board of Trade, they want a gradual reopening of non-essential businesses, a cautious approach. Fitzgerald is expected to give an update on restrictions tomorrow. Well, as for Noble, she just hopes that the alert level 5 is lifted in places like Corner Brook tomorrow, and she can get back to cutting hair. Colleen Connors, CBC News, Corner Brook.
The head of the English School Board is waiting to meet with health officials to talk about health guidelines in schools. English School District CEO Tony Stack says they're not sure yet what the direction will be. They're waiting on the meeting to see if there are plans to change the rules when students are back in school. He said there may be differences in what happens and when based on region. Yesterday, Eastern Health revealed students and staff from 22 different schools had been infected with COVID-19, and that includes 185 cases at Mount Pearl Senior High.
Pretty mild temperatures this afternoon, sitting above zero for parts of the province, mostly for the Avalon, anywhere from 1 to 4 degrees this afternoon. A little bit cooler as you head a little bit further north and then into the Big Land, across the Big Land, looking at temperatures still above where we should be sitting this time of year, into the minus single digits, minus 13 in Lab City. Now, taking a look at the area of low pressure that's moving through, it's taking essentially the exact same track, or at least the same transition as the one that we saw on Tuesday. So we take a look a little bit closer. Lots of snow across the most of the island, and then for the Avalon and eastern Newfoundland, we're seeing that transition. If you haven't seen that transition over to rain already, you will do so in the next probably hour or so. But then tomorrow, as that area of low pressure moves out, snow squalls kick in. Looks like snow squall potential for the west coast as well as the Avalon. I'll break that down for you coming up.
Thanks, Ashley. A 27-year-old man from Deer Lake is facing drug dealing charges after a bust on Tuesday. Police found this inside a home: cocaine, illicit marijuana, prescription meds, and cash. The RCMP hasn't said how much the drugs are worth, but the Serious Crime Unit was involved in the bust.
Well, CBC Radio's Crosstalk was all about rotational workers today. Rotational workers and their spouses phoned in to talk about their experience over the last year and what they would like to see change. Most are all in favor of point-of-entry testing, but that wasn't the only suggestion offered up.
I am a rotational worker. It's very stressful, the situation that we've been put into. Me, myself, last year I spent 6 months off work due to mental problems. Right now I'm taking 3 pills a day to keep myself normal. I'm not disagreeing with what the government is saying. I'm just asking that they just sit down and listen to some of us in some kind of a forum, some kind of committee.
Really, what would it hurt for me and my husband to take our 2 kids and the dog and walk behind our house on the hill for a walk? Who are we going to hurt by doing that? We're not asking to get off the plane and go to a mall.
I'm also the wife of a rotational worker, except my husband works internationally. So he has to do 14 days on the property, and there is no testing, and that's been the way it's been the entire pandemic.
Oh, okay.
And I do agree with the fact that, you know, people have to do the isolation. And I know how difficult it is because I'm living it.
Official confirmation today that voting instructions will not be translated into any language other than English. When the provincial election moved to vote by mail only, Chief Electoral Officer Bruce Chalk said he would look into having materials translated, but today, Elections NL said it ran out of time. The office is committing to translating information into Mi'kmaq, Inuamun, Inuktitut, and French for future elections. There are some unilingual Indigenous language speakers in the province. Well, despite all the challenges and the changes to this election and that we've seen over the last 2 weeks, Liberal leader Andrew Furey is defending his decision to call an election during a pandemic. Furey also said he believes the outcome of the election will be valid. Here now's Mark Quinn explains.
He's been front and center at COVID-19 briefings, but all in-person voting has been cancelled and the province has moved to a level 5 lockdown since the last time Andrew Furey met with reporters for a campaign event.
Okay, no one wants to be in the situation that we're in. There's no question about that.
Give us your justification now for calling an election.
Lovely day, isn't it?
But Furey is still defending his decision to trigger the election in mid-January.
I mean, again, you can only make the best decisions with the evidence available to you at the time. We had no community spread. We had no breaks. We had, so at the time, that was, I believe, to be a sound decision.
Furey is confident Elections NL will make sure that everyone who wants to vote will be able to vote. And Furey said if the Liberals win, they will have a legitimate mandate to govern.
Yes, because I believe it will be a legitimate election.
For the Progressive Conservatives, it's too soon to say if the election has been fair and democratic. Ches Crosby says the party hasn't decided if an election challenge will be warranted.
Let's just say for now there are many problems with it, not the least of which is access to the vote on the part of people like seniors, people without internet access, people who live on the coast of Labrador and the Torn Gap district, and so forth. But I'm going to leave any judgment about legitimacy until after we got the process done and over with.
The NDP agrees questions about the validity of the election will have to happen after the election, especially if voter turnout is low.
Ensure that you can vote now. We continue to gather as much information about some of the ways we can improve that process and reflect on it after. And then perhaps once we make our way through this, then we can start talking about maybe the philosophical or moral implications of what just happened.
Elections NL says mail-in ballots must be post-dated no later than March 12th to be counted, and it hasn't said when results will be released. Mark Quinn, CBC News, St. John's.
The Liberal leader also responded to calls from the PC and NDP leaders to release the interim Moya Green report once he has it. Green is leading a team to come up with ways to fix the province's economy. Furey had previously said that everything is on the table. Today, Furey once again promised that report will be made public.
As soon as I get it, I will release it so that everyone can have a look. This is only an interim report. I have no visibility into the contents of it. Once it's released, again, I've said from the very beginning, we will have after the final report in April, we will have broad public consultations so that everyone has a chance to have a say.
We asked a former premier and retired chief justice to weigh in on this complicated provincial election. That's coming up.
A beautiful start to the day, certainly here in the east, sunshine and temperatures above zero this afternoon. And then we saw that snow move in, but those temperatures really across the board into the minus single digits across Labrador, and then plus on the plus side of the mercury for most of the island. Now taking a look at the satellite and radar right now, we do have an area of low pressure moving through. We saw plenty of snowfall earlier for parts of eastern Newfoundland. That is already transitioned through to rain for most of the Avalon, and if it hasn't, it will do so within the next hour or so. By 8, 9 o'clock, most of eastern Newfoundland should have seen that transition over to rain, and then that snow will continue for parts of Labrador. So taking a look at the future tracker, we'll just time that out just to show you. Here we are at 6 o'clock, and then moving ahead to 8, 9 o'clock. There you can see either tapering to rain or drizzle into the evening hours, but all of that snow will continue through central as well as the west coast. And as that low continues to move off, we're going to get more of a northerly component wind eventually. Those temperatures are going to drop, and we're going to see that transition back over to snow after midnight, or light snow or flurries for eastern areas of the island. And not a whole lot going on for Labrador. You're looking at mainly clear skies tonight, except along the coast and towards central, where you'll see a few flurries. So snowfall wise tonight, this 5 to 10 centimeters was before we saw that transition, but through central 10 to 15 is a good bet. And then for the northern peninsula, Green Bay, White Bay, you're looking at a trace to 5 centimeters by the time you wake up tomorrow morning. So overall tonight, we're looking at the cooler temperatures for Lab City at minus 28, minus teens for the rest of Labrador. It'll be breezy tonight across the board. Winds generally out of the northwest for most, thanks to that area of low pressure, between 40 to 60 kilometers per hour. The winds will be out of the southwest for most of the evening for the Avalon, but it will change over to northwesterlies as we head towards the early morning hours. But again, those temperatures will dip into the minus single digits as we head through the overnight with that snow continuing. So as that low moves off, we do get into that northwesterly flow, and that is going to lead to some snow squalls for the west coast and as well as the Avalon as we head through the afternoon. The best chance of seeing the snow squalls for the west coast will be in the early morning hours, and then we'll see them through most of the afternoon, even into the evening hours. By Saturday morning, the risk of snow squalls will taper off. And then for the Avalon, it'll snow most of the afternoon, but the best chance of seeing some of those heavier squalls will be towards the afternoon and evening hours. And again, with those brisk northwesterlies tomorrow, anywhere from 40 to 60 kilometers per hour, you can expect some reduced visibilities at times, maybe even near zero through the day. So temperatures tomorrow will be much colder, mid-minus single digits towards the west coast. And then we're looking at, as you progressively get towards the east, you're looking at temperatures hovering around the 0 degree mark. A pretty lovely day up through Labrador. Not a whole lot happening for you, although it will be cold. Minus 16 in Lab City, minus 17 in Nain. And then again, that chance of flurries for coastal and central Labrador. Now, as far as those snowfall amounts go, for the west coast, you're looking at 2 to 4 centimeters, locally higher in some of those heavier squalls. And then same thing for the Avalon. So this will take us through Friday morning through Saturday morning. You're looking at about 5 to 10 centimeters in the heaviest squalls. So that's a look at tomorrow's forecast. We'll look ahead to the weekend, which actually looks quiet to start when I come back.
Well, from vaccines to hospitalizations, there has been a lot of change in the COVID situation in our province. And Peter, we've received many questions about that situation from people out there.
Yeah, so I'm going to do my best to try and answer some of those questions tonight. Carolyn, what do we have first?
Well, let's start with the vaccine. How does the rollout in this province compare to the rest of the country?
Very timely, with more of the plan being announced tomorrow. And Carolyn, you know I love some visual aids, so I've got a few numbers that I want to throw out there. So let's look. There are now almost 13,000 people in this province who've received at least the first dose of the vaccine. There are another 7,500 people that are fully vaccinated with those 2 shots. So who are those people? Well, they fall into kind of 3 main categories. So it's largely either frontline healthcare workers, it's seniors in long-term care or personal care homes, and it's remote Indigenous communities. Now, the health minister has said that there aren't more people vaccinated because we're just not getting as much vaccine as quickly as we'd like. But since the provinces are largely getting the same number of doses per capita, let's do some comparisons with other provinces. So First, let's look at what percentage of people are fully vaccinated with those 2 shots. So in this province, it's 1.4% of the population. That's one of the lowest. If you look at the territories, they're doing much better than most of the rest of the country. That's because they've been getting a lot more doses than the rest of the country. It's a similar situation for PEI, why they're basically double the percentage that we have. But otherwise, it's kind of on par, a little bit below some of the other provinces like Alberta and Ontario, but above BC. So let's take a look at the usage of vaccines. And, the health minister has said that we would give out more vaccines if we had them. So let's look at how many are in arms and how many are still in freezers. So most provinces have used more of their doses than we have. So 3/4 of the doses have been used. That means 1/4 are still sitting in freezers. If you look at Saskatchewan, you're wondering how did they get more than 100% of their doses? That's because they were able to squeeze some 6 doses out of vials that were only supposed to have 5. So we're really doing worse than all but kind of 3 provinces. Nova Scotia is behind us, Manitoba's behind us, and we're kind of tied with New Brunswick. So why is it that we're not moving the vaccine out faster? The health minister insists this is kind of more how the accounting is done. These numbers are only updated once a week, and it depends when we have shipments and when we do vaccinations. Here was the explanation that he gave.
The challenge you're talking about is the fact that we are a territory once you get past the overpass. Our population density is the same as none of it and should be considered in that light, I think, quite frankly. But the issue is simply that we are in the process of delivering those vaccines and administering them. And whilst that process is fairly rapid, the reconciliation to adjust the numbers takes days.
So he insists that, when we receive the shipments, those numbers are updated right away, but when it can take a little while for once a vaccine is given out to actually show up in those numbers. It does also depend when we get those shipments, because we only get these figures once a week. So if they get a big shipment on a Tuesday, it shows up on the numbers on Wednesday before the nurses have a chance to actually go and start using that vaccine. So there is a bit of, how you count the numbers, but that's kind of the overall picture. To me, one of the key, it's still only 1.4% of the population vaccinated, and we're 2 months into the vaccination campaign, so.
Seems pretty low. Okay, so now let's move to hospitalizations. There are now 10 people in hospital. Seems like a really big number. What role is the new variant playing in that rise in hospitalizations?
That's a good question, Carolyn, and we don't really know the full answer to that right now. Let's look, though, at we are not at peak hospitalizations in this province in this pandemic. We had 15 people in hospital back last April when we were dealing with the calls cluster. Let me show you a graph. This is how our hospitalizations have progressed since the start of the pandemic. And it is important to know hospitalizations tend to lag things like the case numbers. It takes a while once people get sick for them to get really sick where they need to end up in the hospital. And it also takes quite a while that even after the case numbers go down, like if you look early on in the pandemic, the number of active cases was very low, but it was into June before we actually saw the last person who was able to be checked out of the hospital. So, we've seen, you can see on the right-hand side of that graph, the numbers are going up. And the question is, how high are they going to go? Well, we heard from Dr. Janice Fitzgerald at yesterday's briefing. She is expecting more people will end up in hospital.
With this disease that there are certain percentages that will be hospitalized, certain percentage with severe disease will end up in ICU, and unfortunately there will be a certain percentage of deaths that are associated with that. That's been pretty standard throughout this whole pandemic. There are some reports that this variant may actually lead to more severe disease and potentially deaths as related to this variant, but that information is relatively new. We did have a lot of young people proportionately in this outbreak, so that certainly I think will play some influences to the number of hospitalizations and severe disease that we see. But the expectation would be that we'll see, based on our numbers, we may see anywhere from 10 to 20, and I guess that's what we have to be looking out for. But I think our system will be able to handle that.
So, Carolyn, That is the good news. Is, one of the concerns was, can the healthcare system handle it? You heard Dr. Fitzgerald say she thinks they can. We've heard from the health minister there are plenty of ventilators, but as Terry was talking about earlier, every ventilator needs a respiratory therapist to run it, and that may be where some of the concerns are around. Do we have the staff to be able to keep those going?
Great, thanks so much, Peter. And tomorrow is going to be a big day with the briefing for sure.
Yep, we're going to get more details on the vaccine rollout, and we'll get an update on the alert levels. Will we be moving out of alert level 5? We should find all that out tomorrow.
All right, we'll be watching. Thanks, Peter. The 10 prison guards are charged in the death of Jonathan Henoch. CBC News has learned the provincial government will have to pay for the defense lawyers for their work defending the 10 officers. The province lost an arbitration hearing against NAPE, the union representing the guards. In the ruling, the arbitrator wrote that the employee is required to pay the legal fees. 7 officers are charged with negligence causing death, and 3 are charged with manslaughter.
Well, tonight we have part 2 of our series, Being Black in NL. It's a conversation with the owners of Afro Kitchen NL.
Yeah, that's a new restaurant in St. John's operating from Time Catering and Cooking School on Torbay Road. They serve a wide variety of African meals, including their signature dish, jollof rice.
Welcome to another episode of Being Black in NL. I'm your host, Ifelaba. Today we're going to be speaking to Sunday and Christina Emanuel, co-founders of Afro Kitchen NL, and it's going to be such a yummy episode. Today's going to look a bit different because we're going to do it pandemic style.
Thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate it. So just let us know a little bit about who Afro Kitchen is, who the people behind Afro Kitchen NL are, and yeah, what you do.
One thing we noticed about this place is that when we came in, we struggled to get where to eat home African-made food, African style of food, and it was a challenge to us. And we noticed that many Africans share the same view or the same opinion. But I think Afro Kitchen actually was given birth to during the pandemic because she likes cooking, so she will do a lot of cooking, and I'll just drive her around to share to people, especially the students in their hostels then. And so many people appreciated it, and they wanted more of it, but some of them don't know how to ask, and they suggested that if she will do the cooking for them, they are willing to pay for it.
How do you feel the response is from people that aren't in the African community, so like from people that are native Newfoundlanders?
I think the response for the locals so far is amazing. It's encouraging. Yeah. There's one that ordered the first day we opened. There's a couple that anytime we open, they want the jollof rice, they want the coconut rice, they want the pepper soup, and they want the barbecue tilapia fish.
What is your favorite food to make, and what is your most popular dish?
The most popular dish is the jollof rice.
Yeah.
The jollof rice, everybody can't wait to eat the jollof rice because that is one of the signature from our African country, and I love cooking that jollof rice.
I think jollof rice is all-time favorite because it's one food that cuts across, I think, the entire West African region. So yeah, the fun of the competition among the West African countries, Ghana, Nigeria, Senegal, on jollof rice, I think it actually makes people want to try the jollof rice. What is it about this jollof rice? Like we try to, if you see our menu, every week we try to bring something special, something new. Yeah. But there's one thing that's always constant on the menu, and that's the jollof rice.
Jollof rice. The jollof rice is all day.
Hey guys, so Afro Kitchen NL just sent me a little package to do like a review of their food, and I'm going to start with the jollof rice because that's my vibe. And yeah, it looks like a good color so far. I don't even have anything to say. I'm just gonna say this jollof is it. That's some good jollof.
So we are in February, which is Black History Month. So I think an important question that I would like to ask you guys is, what is Black culture to you?
Black culture. When you talk about Black culture, you talk about the rich cultural heritage of the Black nations or the Black community. Now, to us, Black is everything. Black is the color to identify with. Black is one color that every other color is derived from, the colors of color. And that's just talking about color. But talking about heritage, we have our rich African heritage. Where Africa, we are known for respect, we are known to uphold our culture, our custom and tradition. Wherever we go, we are known for that. Anyway, that's why you see, if you see, I've been seeing the celebration of the African heritage or what Africans do, especially here in Canada. And when I look at it, they are remarkable. Wherever we go, we leave our mark.
Yeah.
And many times these marks, they try to throw them under the carpet to publish the dark side of Africa. But there is more to the beauty of Africa than what the West know. And that's why Afro Kitchen, there's something about Afro Kitchen now in the community that everybody, even other restaurant owners, want to identify with Afro Kitchen. We've gotten invite from so many business owners wanting to do business with us because they know there is something about about Africa, about the beauty of Africa. So talking about being Black, being Africa, I think there's a lot of beauty and glory to it.
Thank you for watching another episode of Being Black in NL. I'm your host, Ife Alaba, and look out for more episodes.
Well, this provincial election has been unlike any other in this province's history. A COVID outbreak caused in-person voting to be canceled. Election day itself is in limbo. Now we expect voting results to be released sometime in March. Constitutional lawyers have weighed in on the legality of the decisions made by the chief electoral officer, including changing the election day. Some argue that Bruce Chalk may have exceeded his powers. Joining me now is someone who was at the helm of the province when the 1991 Elections Act was created, former Premier and retired Chief Justice Clyde Wells. So, Mr. Wells, do you think that Bruce Chalk exceeded his powers when he changed Election Day?
Not as I interpret the statute. It gives the Chief Electoral Officer a wide discretion whenever he considers it necessary to adapt any section of the Act to meet unexpected circumstances or surprises or accidents or changes or any kind of an unexpected event in order to make the Act work in those exigent circumstances. And he has the power to do that. I heard a gentleman complain that acknowledged that he had that power, but that it was limited. He couldn't change the date. Well, that's not right. He could change the date 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 times if necessary. The thing that he can't do is permit voting before the hour permitted on an ordinary polling day or after the hour permitted on a polling day. He can't change that timing. But other than that, he can adapt any section of the Act to accommodate the unexpected circumstances.
We keep hearing that this election will inevitably end up in court. Do you think that there will be a legal challenge of the election results?
I have no idea what politicians may do. Who knows? Somebody may challenge it, but I don't see how it could be successful on anything that I've seen to date. I don't know what's going to happen between now and when somebody might make a challenge, but nothing I've seen to date would warrant a challenge as far as I can see.
So there's the legal side of this, but what do you make of how this election was handled? Voting methods kept changing, the voting deadlines kept shifting. At one point there was even talk of a drive-through polling station that hadn't even been cleared by the Chief Medical Officer of Health. It just seemed quite chaotic. What do you make of how it was handled?
A pandemic normally creates chaotic circumstances. It's difficult to foresee what it might be or how it might affect events that are required to take place, and that's why the provision in the statute gives the Chief Electoral Officer that broad discretion to do whatever he thinks is necessary to enable the provisions of the Act to be adapted so as to achieve what was intended by the Act. And those are the kinds of words that's used, and it gives a practical discretion to the Chief Electoral Officer to do whatever is necessary to enable the conduct of an election successfully.
Andrew Furey has been heavily criticized throughout this process. He's been criticized for calling the election when he did. He's been criticized for how everything has just gone sideways. Do you think that's fair?
I'm familiar with politicians criticizing premiers. It's a way of life, and you have to live with it. And almost no matter what you do, you're going to be criticized. I'm not particularly bothered by anything he did. I see nothing wrong with it.
Do you think that it was a mistake to call the election when it was called?
No, I mean, hindsight is absolutely wonderful. If he knew what was going to happen before he called it and knew that it was going to happen, it may be a bit irresponsible, but who knew that? Nobody. Everything was going well. We'd been handling the pandemic. The officials were doing a marvelous job in Newfoundland, and then somebody or a group of somebodies brought in this virus, the UK version, and it upset the whole apple cart. All of a sudden we had things topsy-turvy. Well, who could have foreseen that? Nobody.
Well, Clyde Wells, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Well, looking to more regional news now, the federal government made a major commitment to open net pen salmon farming in Atlantic Canada today. It's backing a $27 million project that will use advanced ocean sensors to monitor and manage a fish farm from shore. The CBC's Paul Withers reports.
And the job numbers are big.
Grieg Seafood's on-again, off-again salmon farm and hatchery plan for Marystown, Newfoundland, will be used to develop the sensors to allow the remote operation of open-net farms.
What we're trying to build is sort of the next generation technology. We want to be able to work in areas where there is no infrastructure.
Halifax-based Innovasea will provide many of the sensors in the water that will transmit a wide range of data from ocean conditions to the size and health of the fish in real time. The information received and relayed from new towers on shore.
And they're trying to determine, is the fish fed? Are the pellets going through the bottom of the cage? What's the size of the fish in each of those pens? What we want to bring is technology that can look at all those things using machines and assist the feeders. So now maybe feeders can look at 8 screens instead of 1 and just look for the red flag that says, I got to focus on this one.
Tell me about how you can tell whether a fish is hungry.
Their behavior changes. So as they get satiated, they won't go for a pellet. They'll let a pellet go through, and we don't want pellets falling down through the cage, because that's not good for the environment. So we want to stop feeding as soon as they're not interested in eating anymore.
With a significant new project led from Newfoundland and Labrador.
It's the first major aquaculture spend from the Ocean Supercluster, a federal innovation agency. It's putting in $12 million, industry $15 million. Some of the technology is already in use at fish farms operated by Greek competitor Cook Aquaculture, but not in an area like Placentia Bay with little wireless service, offering the opportunity to test remote technology needed for the next frontier in global aquaculture, cages in the open ocean.
Building technology where you can beam the data that you're collecting on those farms back to shore and back to areas where people might need that data to implement machine learning algorithms or build on what's been done over the years, but allow machines to assist in some of that.
Work starts later this year. It's a boost for Grieg, which halted construction on its hatchery last fall, citing poor prices caused by the pandemic. Paul Withers, CBC News, Halifax.
Well, COVID-19 is being linked to a study in the UK that has big implications for the healthcare system. The research suggests some people with potential cancer symptoms didn't try to get medical treatment last year. Tessa Arcilla has more.
The study by Cardiff University and Cancer Research UK found that out of 8,000 people, nearly half of them with potential cancer symptoms did not seek help from their GPs during the first wave of the pandemic. They found that 31% did not seek help after coughing up blood, 41% did not seek help after an unexplained lump or swelling, and 59% did not seek help after noticing changes in the appearance of a mole. These are all red flags that would worry doctors. And I spoke to the lead researcher from Cardiff University. She said there are a few reasons why people are reluctant.
Like being worried about catching or transmitting coronavirus, either catching it themselves or passing it on to somebody else. Some people also talked about worry about putting extra burden on an already stretched healthcare service.
She said that most of the time it isn't cancer, but if it is cancer, she said that it is better to catch it early. This is a problem that's not just here in the UK, but it is also in Canada. In a recently released report by the Quebec government, they estimate that more than 4,000 people had cancer undiagnosed because of this drop in screening. Messaging played a key role. Here in the UK, in the beginning of the pandemic, the government was telling people to stay home, save lives, save the healthcare system. This study found that it did send a strong signal to people that cancer can wait. Doctors want to reverse that and tell people if you have symptoms, get yourself checked right away, because they say cancer does not and will not wait. Tessa Arcilla, CBC News, London.
The farmers of Bonavista Bay, the people coaxing a living from the soil next to the sea. An archival special, Sunday at noon and Monday at 7.
Welcome back to Here Now. All this week on the show, we've been asking you to show us what you and your family are up to during this lockdown. Last night, we shared some great outdoor photos and activities, from ice fishing to building snow sculptures out on the front lawn.
Yes, and tonight we're going to head indoors and show you some ways that people are keeping busy around the house. So, of course, yoga studios are closed right now, but Kayla Powell is finding some inner peace with her 3 young children doing yoga in the living room.
I'm betting that inner peace is very fleeting with young children. How about this creative craft idea? Leisha Sagan has been passing the time by doing embroidery journaling. She embroiders a small image to represent each day, and if you look closely, you'll see a Lego figure, a rolling pin, a laptop, some snowshoes, and lots more. It's a cool way to tell the kind of chronicle the days as you move through this pandemic.
Very cool. Supermom, I see there. And sticking with textiles, check out this incredible crocheted jacket that Kirby Humber has been working on. She says this was her first lockdown project, and she doesn't know if she'll be able to top it. And yeah, I don't know how you can top that either. It is absolutely stunning.
And great to keep you warm when you try and do those outside activities. If you're looking for a simple but fun activity for the kids, rock painting is an oldie but a goodie. Deneen Whalen sent us this great picture with her kids. You can see SpongeBob SquarePants there on the left, and a monster that I don't recognize but will now haunt my dreams is on the right.
Very cute. And finally, more cuteness. If you just need to keep the little kids entertained for a few minutes, here's a clever way to do it. Chris Locke sent in this photo of his granddaughter, Millie, and her new best friend, the Robo Vacuum. I bet it's a pretty good friend to the grandfather as well.
Whatever it takes to keep the kids entertained. If it's a robot vacuum, if it's rock painting, just let them have at it.
Adorable. Well, thank you so much, everyone, for sending in those.
This weather update is brought to you by the Healthcare Foundation Home Lottery. Order tickets now at hcfhomelottery.ca.
After a pretty busy weather week this week, the weekend finally looks to calm down a little bit, at least the first half of the weekend. Let's take a look at the forecast for Saturday. Temperatures much cooler, though, into the minus single digits. The coolest in the east. St. John's reaching a high near -5 tomorrow rather on Saturday morning. Chance of a few flurries to start, but then plenty of sunshine into the afternoon. That's pretty much the story across the board, with the potential for a few flurries for the northern peninsula and along the strait. And then those temperatures staying again well above where we should be sitting this time of year for Labrador, into the minus single digits, but some light snow moving in for Lab City. So that's Saturday. As we head into Sunday, that's when the next weather maker moves in. That ridge of high pressure will move out, so that snow will move in for Labrador, and then we'll see it for most of the island by Sunday morning, and then we're going to see a transition through to rain. It looks like for extreme southwest along the south coast, and then for eastern areas of the island as we head into the afternoon on Sunday, or at least mix with some rain at times. And then as that low moves off, we'll see that transition back to snow again as we head into Monday. So taking a look at the forecast for Sunday, temperatures wise, hovering near or a few degrees above zero. But again, anything through central and the west coast looks like you should stay as snow. We'll see that mix in potentially with some rain at times for eastern areas, around 1 to 3 degrees. And then cooler temperatures for northern areas as well. Maine, you're sitting at about -16. So as we head into Monday, Tuesday, temperatures will stay up above zero, it looks like, either flurries or rain or snow on Tuesday. And that's when the next weather maker will move in. And then we're looking at a similar forecast for central Newfoundland, hovering near or just above zero through the afternoon. A little bit more sunshine in play on Monday for the west, and then back again 2 degrees, so either rain or snow at times for Tuesday. For Eastern Labrador, some sunshine on Monday and then flurries return, but look at those temperatures. Well, just a few degrees below zero as the daytime highs. And then in the west, you're looking at temperatures just hovering between 6 to 9 degrees below zero. I wanted to share this photo. Look at the moon over Little Catalina. Jason shared that photo with us. Thank you for that. And if you have any weather photos,